Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to call the 2021 Ordinand Finance Committee to order right now. I want to say good evening. Started out raining, but you know, it stopped for a few minutes anyway. And so I just want to say that to all the department heads that are on, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. To all the department heads that are on, I'm just going to say right now, and I'll remind you when it's your turn, that you will be asked a series of questions related to your budget and are expected to answer as completely as you can. If you answer our questions and you cannot, if the answer to our questions cannot be provided at this time, please indicate when you are able to provide it to a committee. Legislators have been provided with your written responses to our budget information request letter, and we thank you for your cooperation in providing them. However, in order to complete a more thorough examination of your budget, it may be necessary to forward you some additional questions after tonight's hearing. So right now, I'm going to take attendance, and I'm going to start with the Audit and Finance Committee, and then all of the other legislators that are on, I will ask you to identify yourself as we go along. So I'll start with the members of the Audit and Finance Committee. Mr. Peter.
Present, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Oops. Mr. Bergdorf.
Here.
Mr. Clay. Mr. Clay, Mr. Chairman, where are you?
I see his picture, so I don't know.
You see him? Okay.
Here he comes, I think. Here he comes.
Can you hear me?
What page is he on? I can't see him. Does anybody?
Wait, hold on a minute. Let me see what's
I
going on.
hear you, so you're here.
Okay.
Mr. Grimm.
Here.
Okay. Ms. Lakakis.
Here.
Mr. Mayo.
He's muted. Yes.
Can I see him somewhere?
Yeah, he's there.
Okay.
Sorry.
Let's say.
Here, sorry.
Mr. O'Brien.
Here.
You're here. I can see you. Mr. Raymond Joyce is excused for this evening. And so I'm going to move forward now with the rest of our members. Mr. Beston, are you here?
He's here.
Oh, okay. Mr. Brewski? Ms. Chapman?
Here.
Mr. Cleary?
Here.
Oh, okay. Mr. Camiso? Ms. Cunningham? Mr. Demolowitz? Mr. Drake? Mr. Epicoro?
Here.
Okay, say that again. Mr. Ethier? Ms. Gill? Okay, Mr. Feeney?
Here.
Okay, Mr. Fine?
Here.
Mr. Kuhn? Mr. Langdon?
Here.
Ms. Lockhart? Mr. Moriello?
Here.
Ms. McLaughlin? Ms. McLean Lane? Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Purley?
Here.
Ms. Plotsky?
Here.
Mr. Reedy? Mr. Reinhardt?
Here.
Mr. Ricard?
Present, Madam Chair.
Mr.
Happy
Simpson?
birthday.
Mr. Smith? Mr. Tunney? Mr. Ward?
Present.
Miss Whalen?
I'm here, Madam Chairwoman, and happy birthday to Bill Ricard.
Happy birthday, Bill. All right, very good.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. I'm happy to see so many members present tonight. So our, for session number 2, we'll start out with economic development and planning. Then the Times Union Center, recreation hockey facility, Cornell Cooperative Extension, water purification, stormwater coalition, information services, public works, and then general services. Okay. All right, Mr. O'Connor, are you with us?
Yes, I am, Madam Chairwoman.
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
As I stated before, if you can't answer some questions that may be put forward to you tonight, we'll be very happy to receive the responses later. I would like for you to begin at least and provide us with a 2 to 3 minute summary of your budget and how it meets your department's needs for 2021.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And I understand Chairman Joyce is not here, but I'd like to express my condolences on the passing of his mother.
Thank you very much on his behalf.
Thank you. As you know, County Executive McCoy commissioned an economic development strategy that was released the beginning of this year before the world changed. It found that Albany County is the only county in the 8-county region without an economic development entity. The study recommended a creation of a local development corporation to fulfill that service. The county executive convened a ad hoc committee to advise on the establishment of such LDC, included Andrew Joyce, which Eric Ford sat in on, Sean Ward, Todd Drake, Bill Clay, and various businesses in the area. They recommended the creation of the Advantage Albany County Alliance, the LDC. Negotiations with the legislature are underway presently for its creation. And it's my firm opinion and belief that the Advanced Albany County Alliance is needed now more than it was when we first started out on this to rebuild the county's economy in the advent of the pandemic. And with that, Madam Chairwoman, I will answer any questions that you would like to ask if I have the information.
Thank you. I'm going to start with several questions and then I'll open it up. Are you able to provide this as the same level of service you currently do with the budget presented? And what, if any, impacts to a vulnerable population you serve will result from this budget?
We are able to continue to provide the services that have been provided in the past. And in addition to that, Madam Chairwoman, we'll be able to provide much more services, particularly to disadvantaged populations, with the creation of the new local development corporation. I think that some of our neighborhoods have been impacted by the COVID pandemic greater than others, and I think that warrants a special effort. And I think our new local development corporation is certainly capable of providing those services.
Okay. Fees for services are down to $10,000 from $273,197 in 2020. Why the spike last year? And was that due to the county's strategic development plan completed by Camoin Associates?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I believe it was. I don't have the exact numbers, but I understand that that is in fact the change in the budget. I was not here for last year's budget, so I'm not as familiar with that budget.
Madam Chair, this is Luke Rogers from the County Executive's Office. The other thing that incorporated was the 2020 state census funding. Obviously, that was a 2020 specific expense that we were able to, at least in partial form, distribute to community partners who helped us with the effort for a complete count. Census ended rather abruptly, unfortunately, a little bit early last week due to the Supreme Court's siding with the Trump administration, but that's what represents that significant change. It's a, once in a decade expense.
Thanks for the assist, Luke.
Thank you. Mr. Peter,
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Mr. O'Connor, thank you for appearing before us, and I'm very pleased, as I was at your confirmation hearing, that you are leading our economic development efforts, and I again applaud the county executive for putting this together and having you in charge of it. This is a mix of a question and a statement, I suppose, and I think you covered a little bit in your opening statement, but I would ask, and it seems to be that you are, that as you develop a job creation strategy or are trying to get different works in there, that the LDC that you're creating, make sure that the jobs created note when it's an Albany resident, and specifically recruitment techniques and other things of that nature, to make sure that we are appealing to neighborhoods that have not seen development. And perhaps you would consider obviously working with Chairman Clay of the Legislative Black Caucus on MWBE recruitment and what type of job trainings we can do as part of it, whether it's a feeder system or making sure that we, because when we sometimes see IDA previous reports, it's jobs created, but jobs created for people outside the county who drive in and drive out have a very different economic impact than someone in the county or in a surrounding neighborhood of where development takes place.
Yes, Mr. Cannon, thank you. I couldn't agree with you more. One of the greater frustrations that I've seen for Albany County is that it has not participated in some of the major economic development projects in the county, most notably the nanotech development on Fuller Road. The county stepped up in quite a meaningful way and rerouted roads, and state provided hundreds of millions of dollars in there. And yet most of the economic activity that occurred as a result of that project occurred outside of Albany County. We just cannot let that happen. And we have an opportunity in front of us right now with this offshore wind initiative that's currently in front of the state for approval. And I think that has the potential to create thousands of jobs, go on for decades. And Mr. Peter, you're exactly right. We have to be able to make sure that these jobs inure to the benefit of Albany County residents, and particularly those in some of the neighborhoods that have been hardest hit by the pandemic and some of the institutional racism that we've seen across the country.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Yeah.
thank you, Mr. Peter. Mr. Bergdorf.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for appearing tonight. I'm very encouraged by your efforts and you're willing to be a part of this. The one thing I didn't see on our first priority, which is the establishment of an LDC, although it's mentioned in the text in several places, is the funding and the staffing for an LDC. Can you give us some sort of sense as to what the prevailing wisdom is as to where the funding will come from and what kind of staff you think you need? And then I have one more minor question after that.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. That is under discussion right now. The economic development strategy done by Camoin 310 Associates recommended that the initial funding for the LDC would be around $500,000, and that would be to start up, to hire staff, put the appropriate systems in place. There are certain software programs, customer relationship management software, particular to economic development, to get a set of offices in place, and then to start going out and marketing this region for economic development. And those discussions, I understand, are underway between the county executive's budget office and various legislative staff members.
Okay, so is that something that we might potentially see in the year 2021?
Yeah, if not sooner. I think there is a tremendous need out there, as you all know. I'm sure you're hearing it from your constituents. Just this week, I've been dealing with several of the major hotels in our county, and I have to tell you, folks, it's they're on really rocky ground. Sean Ward asked me to talk to one a couple of weeks back, and this is a major hotel in the city of Albany, and they're in severe financial distress. So the sooner we get this new entity funded and off the ground, the better. But I'll tell you, I think Sean Thalen and Mike McLaughlin might have a better sense of when that's going to happen.
While watching this tutorial, please.
So that's it's under negotiation presently, Paul, is what I understand.
Okay. My second question is, I see now that the senior national natural resource planner is now a part of your department. Has that been a transition from DPW?
I don't know. I think they've always been considered part of the department. But Luke, would you happen to know the answer to Paul's question?
That has always been in that department, Mr. Bergdorf. That's Laura DeGaetano, who, as you know,
Right,
worked for the county.
but now organizationally, she appears under Kevin in the budget. So this is a little bit of a statement and a little bit of a budget concern. I have not always been a fan of the way Albany County conducts its state environmental quality review assessments. In many instances, we list major projects and major laws as unlisted actions. And I think in the real world, that big projects are going to end up being type 1 and are going to require full-blown seekers. And generally, in that instance, probably, I don't know if Albany County will choose to be lead agency or they will defer to DEC or whatever they are. But I don't see any place in your budget where if you had to hire a consultant to do a type 1 seeker on a major project, you would have funding to do that. Has that been part of any of your discussions with the county executive's office or the county attorney's office?
Paul, it has not been part of any discussions that I've had, but I'm not sure that they may not be taking place other places. As you know from your work in the town of Colony over the past 20 years, oftentimes, the lead agency can be any number of things, including an IDA or somebody else. So I just don't know how the county is organized to do that. Sean or Luke, you have any thoughts on that?
That in a number of past examples, if we are undertaking a project of that magnitude, we are going to be bringing on an engineering consultant to help us throughout that process. And they typically have expertise for the more in-depth or high-level seeker. Not to take anything away from our, what we have in-house, but when you're talking, the kind of project you're talking about, it's been done by that engineering consultant in coordination with the county.
Okay, I know for Soldier On, we did a full-blown seeker. For the biodigester, we did a full-blown seeker. I assume if you're talking about a large project in the Port of Albany, you'll be talking about a full-blown seeker. And I just want to make sure that that's a base that you give some consideration to or has some dialogue with to make sure we don't miss something along the way.
Thank you, Mr. Bergdorf. Ms. Lakakis? Ms. Lakakis?
I'm right here. Thank
Okay.
you. Sorry. I just wanted to say I was happy to see the agribusiness development stuff because I've been reading a lot lately about how local food production is going to be a big part of our COVID recovery. But I have two strange particular questions that I don't know if you'll be able to answer tonight. One is I did read about the chestnut problems in the Mohawk, and I was wondering if you have any plans to address the invasive species, particularly the knotweed, because it is really on the rail trail, it's just really spread a lot in the last 15 years, and I haven't seen anybody doing anything about it, and I was just wondering. And my next question is, I was wondering if the pollinator project, if you had any plans to expand that into more like into the cities and the more urban areas. That just those are my two questions.
Sure. So those are really in Laura's territory. I believe she's on. I know she was dealing with a veterinary issue earlier, but Laura, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Hopefully everything's going well.
Can you hear me? Thanks.
Yeah, we got you, Laura.
For the pollinator project, last year I created a little website for the pollinator project that I can send you the link if you like. I know DPW has taken some initiatives in partnering with Soil and Water to get some wildflower seed planted at a couple of their sites. We're also considering a site at Anley Pond Preserve. We still have to work out the details on that. As far as the water chestnut on the Mohawk, we've been talking to DEC to get a work group together to see if we can get some partners to figure out a potential shared water chestnut harvester. It's kind of a complicated issue. So we're working with PRISM, the invasive species management partner with DEC to try to do a little bit of research to see what we're going to need to do to address that issue. That I know of, no one's looked comprehensively at invasive species issues on the rail trail. Mohawk Hudson Lake Conservancy has worked with PRISM to do a couple of areas of mitigation with volunteer efforts to clear some of the invasives on the rail trail. But that's certainly something that we could look into, is doing some sort of comprehensive evaluation of the needs there and come up with a management plan. There's some funding available for small projects for invasive removal. So that's something we might want to pursue.
That'd be great, because it's like everywhere. It just keeps spreading. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lakakis. Mr. Ricard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. Just, Kevin, I appreciate you talking to us this evening, and I think you're doing a good job so far, and going forward, obviously, you're going to do a great job too. I asked you this question at your confirmation hearing, though. Just a quick question. As you know, City of Cohoes has a Cohoes Local Development Corporation. They do a great job. You know, they're trying their best to market our community throughout the region, throughout the United States, throughout the world, for that matter. But how are you going to work with the Cohoes Local Development Corporation or any other local development corporations in the county with your new entity? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Bill. A very important question, and I think it's the basis of our new organization has got to be collaboration, and particularly collaboration with the other LDCs and IDAs that exist. Whether they be in Green Island, Colony, Guilderland, Bethlehem, Cohoes, or anywhere else for that matter, the city of Albany. And the way I look at this is that, working with the other economic developers from the various municipality, what I'd like to put together is a one-stop shop place so that businesses can come to us and get services and be referred out to any of the communities. As we just recently have done, we've gotten some leads coming into the county, and we distribute those out to the various municipalities to see if they have sites that might be able to fit with a particular need. And I think that's going to be, one of the foundations of this new office. It feels to me, Bill, like the locals economic developers are really looking for something to coordinate everybody's activities. And So that's got to be key for us, because we all have to be on the same page if we're going to be not just, our businesses and our elected officials, but our local economic developers and land use planners and everybody else.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I was just, I had some questions about it because a couple of the individuals in the community just had some questions about it too. So
yeah, it's
I just
crucial
wanted to get your
crucial
feedback
to
on it though. But thank you.
cooperation.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Grimm.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kevin, thanks for joining us tonight. Yeah, I'm still unclear. You say you want to start this sooner than later, this LDC, but there's nothing in the budget that would support it. So how can this happen then? I'm unclear about that. Where's the money going to come from?
Yeah, I understand there are some discussions going on between the county executive staff and the legislative staff to find the funds necessary to do this. So I Mark, I apologize. That's kind of the extent to which I know. I've been asked to come to several meetings of staff, and I've attended those, and I understand. I've been told that the funding is under active discussion, but I don't know exactly how that's all going to happen yet.
Will it be a mix of county money and corporate money? Is that the plan?
The startup $500,000, I believe we're looking to the county to come up with. This is something that, hopefully we won't have to do for too long. I envision that ultimately this corporation would be self-sustaining, Mark, based on the fees that they would get and perhaps some other revenue sources that they could generate for their operations.
Kevin, you were brought on as a part-time. Are you still a part-time position?
No. I they pulled me in full time. So
okay, because I was going to ask you how the hourly rate got to $127,000.
Yeah, well,
but my concern was how would you manage this new corp if you were part-time? So
yeah, no, you can't. You need a full-time person to manage this. This is going to be a pretty a pretty intensive job for the person, as with any startup, Mark. You know what that's like.
Yeah.
And but I think within 3 to 6 months, I think we'll have this thing well underway. We've got the incorporation papers already drafted. We're just waiting for the nod from the county legislature to proceed.
One of the things you've stressed, Kevin, is speaking with a single voice, which I think is really important. But I see in Albany County, we have some different voices. For example, our county IDA ran some commercials on Albany County, and the county executive wasn't even consulted on it. So it didn't make sense to me that we all have to be in agreement on what makes us special and what makes people want to do business here. So will you be able to kind of bring these all under your umbrella? By that, I mean the county IDA. Also, Discover Albany is another example who's involved in promoting Albany County. I really think we need a single voice. And are you able to do that?
Yeah, Mark, we've got a great working relationship with Bill Clay and his counsel, Walt Foreman, as we do with the, Discover Albany and the Albany Land Bank, the various IDAs, the 6 other IDAs that exist in the county. And I think that, they all understand the benefit of acting as a single unified voice. It's why Rensselaer County has been so successful with Regeneron and with Amazon, why Schenectady has been killing it with their Metroplex, and why with the exception of the recent nonsense, why Saratoga has been doing so well over the past 20 years. All those counties have been able to, despite their political differences, have been able to speak with a single voice. And you're right on. It's investment like
O'Connor.
That's what you have to have in this.
I mean, I guess my question is, Kevin, will you have the authority
Mr.
to direct these folks if they don't agree? I really believe this simple and clear message thing is really important. Will this give you the authority to kind of direct everyone to get on the same page?
Thank you, Mr. Grimm, for your questions. Mr. O'Connor has been on now for almost 30 minutes.
Yeah, could you, Madam Chair, could you let him answer the question, please?
Mr. Grimm? Mr. O'Connor has been on now for 30 minutes.
We'll submit the question.
And you can submit the question and he can answer it later, please, and thank you. All
Thank
right.
you, Madam
Mr.
Chairwoman.
O'Connor,
Thank
we
you,
wanna
Kevin.
thank you for your presentation this evening. And we do realize that all of our members have questions in regards to this, I don't want to say new department, but this department that has opened up, you know, again. And so we look forward to what you're going to be doing for the county in the near future. We'll submit the questions and we'll make sure that you get them, and we'll be looking for a response.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Happy to provide any information I can.
Thank you very much. All right. All right, Mr. Belber.
Yes, hello.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Belber.
Good
Now,
evening.
I'm going to ask you and you know, direct you the same way I've done everyone else. We want you to give a 2 to 3 minute presentation. If there are questions that are asked that you cannot answer this evening, that'll be all right. We'll take them down and we'll make sure that the members get your response later on. Okay?
Very good.
Okay, you may begin.
Thank you. First, I'd like to also express our condolences to Chairman Joyce and his family for their loss. And I'd like to go on by saying that we are coming off of probably the worst year in the history of the building. This budget is a best scenario that we can come up with based on the current circumstance. I think our industry is probably the worst affected, arguably, by probably every other industry, but ours is the one that remains closed. We have had some dialogue with the governor's office. We've submitted a reopening plan to have Siena basketball start with limited social distance seating in January. And we don't know if that's going to be approved. The budget that you have that we submitted is assuming that there will not be any events in the arena for the first quarter. And if there are events that take place, that's going to be a bonus. But the furloughed employees that we have, which are roughly 23 employees, and the continued expense cuts that we have gone through during the 2020 9 months from mid-March through the rest of the year will continue right into the first quarter. And we expect that things will get better as the vaccinations are distributed. And many of the 2020 events have been moved to 2021. Some of those events actually were moved into the first quarter. For example, Michael Bublé on March 11th is probably potentially in jeopardy of being moved into August again because of where we're sitting currently. So there are a lot of tours that are being routed. We have some great news from the NCAA with awards that just took place you may have heard about with future years. But the dialogue that we've been going through with the governor's office recently relates to the NCAA women's basketball at the end of March, where we have not gone on sale yet. We need to have a social distance seating capacity that we can provide to them so that they can go on sale, assuming that the state allows us to open at some point. And arena football would start up in April, again, with similar scenarios. Social distance seating, people up to 6 in a group sitting 6 feet apart. Scheduled arrivals for 25% of those attending in advance of the start time. And then also coordination for departure so that there won't be a lot of people that are on the concourse and going in and out of the building. A lot of time and effort with our company, which is the biggest in the world, ASM Global, working with CDC and scientists and doctors to come up with the very best safety measures to reopen this building. So with that, I open it up for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Belber. What I will is I'll start out with a question. And facility fee revenues are down $200,000. And Civic Center revenues are down almost $1 million. Were these decreases solely pandemic related?
Yes, Madam Chairwoman, they are. The fact is, without events, your facility fee is $1 per ticket. And so without events and without ticket sales, you're going to have that kind of a decrease. The projected loss for 2020 is still being tabulated, but it's going to be a considerable loss in 2020. The projected profit, which is not a big profit, at $96,971 in this budget, is a considerable difference as compared to where we think we're going to end up in 2020. And a lot of that depends on many factors that we can't control right now, which relate to when we can reopen, when the state will ease restrictions on mass gathering facilities like this. And one thing I will say is that we won't be bringing anybody back from furlough until we do start events. And the very few that are still here have had substantial pay cuts.
Thank you very much. Can you also tell me, how did the COVID-19 health crisis affect the revenues from the suite rentals?
That's a great question. And I'm glad that you asked that question, because as we go into 2021, we can't realize those revenues from the suites if we can't allow the suite holders to use their suites. So for the first 3 months of 2021, we do not have revenues from suites, from advertisers, and we have reduced revenues from naming rights, because without those event presentations, we can't realize those revenues.
Thank you. Mr. Bergdorf?
Wanda, thank you very much. My first question was actually the one you just asked. Are we not charging anybody now for 2020 for the suites? Have we withheld billing, or are people paying for them, or have they paid in advance, or what's the story?
Sure, great question, Mr. Bergdorf. So the suite holders have continued to be billed per their contract, and majority of those suite holders have paid. Some have not, but we are keeping track of every single account, every single suite holder. We do expect, and we've had substantial conversation with the county exec's office and his staff, and the county attorney's office. We are going to have to provide an extension of term at no additional cost to make up for the months from April 1st until the duration of this closing ends. So one of the things that an approval from the governor's office to allow us to reopen in January for hosting Siena games, and hopefully other events down the road in addition to that, is that it will stop the bleeding. And Paul, you're right, the duration of the closure is essential. So if it's only 9 months, I say only, but if it's 9 months and it goes through December, then that extension of term on the lease contracts for the suites will be for 9 months. The same thing exists for the advertisers. We've taken in revenues from the advertisers in 2020, although they haven't had anybody to see their signs in the building from April 1st until currently, and probably won't have anybody through the rest of this year. So we believe that it's probably going to be at least a 9-month extension of term, and therefore we're going to have a reduction of revenues in 2021.
Okay, just a last quick question. You got a ginormous building down there, and I realize that most of your staff is furloughed. We don't have any county employees down there, correct?
No, sir, we do not. We have a very
Okay.
limited staff.
So how are you handling things like security, whatever limited maintenance is involved, utility payments, HVAC servicing? are those all expenditures of SMG, or do they get passed on to the county?
Those are all expenditures of the operation of the building that do get passed on to the county. We have been paying for or operating on a cash flow basis with the utilization of many of the revenues that I mentioned, from suites and advertisers, naming rights, et cetera. The maintenance of the building has continued to take place. We have an HVAC technician, we have an electrician that are continuing on staff. We have security on a 24/7 basis, so that people are here watching cameras, making sure the building is secure. And we have our directors of finance, marketing, and operation continuing to work, doing the work of 2 and 3 people to keep the financial statements flowing and reporting continuing, and also to make sure that all of our inspections are being done the way that they need to do, regardless of whether we're open or not. You know, our HVAC systems, our hoists, all of the different inspections that have to take place, fire alarms and so forth, we are right up to date and right up to speed, even though we have such a limited staff.
But they will ultimately, those costs will be billed back to the county.
All of those costs are actually included in our 2020 operations, and there will be a loss that the county is going to have to absorb or cover.
Okay. And is that reflected anywhere or made up anywhere, or is that part of what we talk about when we talk about the county's 2020 deficit? Or that's probably a question more for Sean or
Hi,
Dave.
Paul, it's Sean. Can you guys hear me?
Thank you, Mr. Thalen.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, that is something that's going to have to be incorporated to the 40 million that you asked for last night. It will be a piece of that number.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bergdorf. Excellent questions. I had the same questions. Thank you. Ms. McLean Lane.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate your recognizing me. Mr. Belber, thank you very much. I have a question regarding the rental agreements. Are they subject to the same requirements of the state regarding rental agreements currently, that they are responsible for, they can have some level of, not having to pay right now, but they do have to pay in full at some point. Are they subject to that?
So that's
or
a very
are we
good.
letting them sort of slide a little bit?
Well, that's a very good question. I will say this. If someone has reached out to us, a suite holder, let's say, has reached out to us, and I'm going to ask you, I'm assuming you're asking about suites?
Suites and pretty much any rental agreement that we have regarding whether it be, the entities that rent and provide food, services, et cetera, any rental agreement that the facilities have. If they're a longstanding rental agreement, are they subject to the current agreements or the current, situation with the state, which says, hey, they can bide some time, but they are ultimately responsible for the rent? That's my question.
Sure, it's a great question, and thank you for that. And I will say that, yes, they are subject to that.
Okay.
However, the suite holders, we have had a great dialogue back and forth. Most of them have been suite holders for many, many years. And in most cases, they've made payments. In some cases where they haven't, because they haven't had the use of their suites, we haven't pushed the issue. We haven't forced anything on them. And in fact, we've expressed to them in those particular cases, when we start hosting ticketed events again, we will expect them to get back to a current basis. So that's on the suites. On the retail stores that are down front, which is a totally different category, they are absolutely the same as you stated. They're subject to the state law on that. Although I will say that They are all current within a month, and but at the same time, they are struggling. And they're going to have a hard time, and have expressed that they're going to have a hard time to stay afloat and stay in business unless things change.
Thank you, Mr. Belber. I do agree with you on that. This is a hard line. Everybody has to, you know, it's a very hard line. And I do agree with you. And thank you very much for your candor. And I appreciate your commenting on this. Thank you very much. My comment time is over.
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Belber, I want to thank you for coming on this evening and presenting.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, I've had my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mr. Grimm. I asked, did you have a question? You didn't respond, so I figured that you didn't.
Okay. No, thank you.
Are
Yeah.
you using your chat to you know?
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I've been taking notes, so that's why I missed it. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just unclear, Bob. You say in your memo, your budget memo, that SMG will not receive a fee for 2020, and it's not forecasting to receive a fee in 2021. Are you saying you guys are doing the management work without charging us? Or at some point you will charge us for that bill?
No, Mark, I'm actually saying that based on what we see as a probable loss for 2020, there won't be a fee of any kind from ASM Global. And based on the budget that we have provided to you, which has a bottom line profit projected at $96,971, the first 600,000 in net profits would go to Albany County based on our management contract. So we would, in essence, we would be providing 2 years of management services with no fees.
But how as a business model, how does that work? You're doing work for us. You just got the NCAAs. Is that pro bono work then, essentially?
Well, all of the staffing and operating costs are being paid for by the county. So me and my staff and so forth are expenses of operating. But the fees that you normally pay and have paid in the past, which have been management fees with incentive bonus fees as well, those went away in the renewal agreement that took place. And some of that was I don't want to call it a Vegas bet, but it was based on 23 years of million plus average net profits. The company felt that it would take a shot at a incentive-based, performance-based contract. Nobody knew a pandemic was coming. And so either it was a bad bet or the county got a great deal.
Yeah. Well, we couldn't have a better person to manage this mess, Bob. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Could everyone just hold on just one moment, please? Thank you. Now, do we have any other questions for Mr. Belber right now?
I just had a quick question. I did send you a message, Madam Chair. Bill Rickard.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Ricard. Please go ahead.
Quick question. Bob, I appreciate all your efforts. You know, I absolutely love, my family absolutely loves, my constituents love going down to the Times Union Center. And I appreciate everything you do. It's a very difficult situation. I appreciate your efforts. Quick question though. You mentioned that you had a staff member that does an HVAC technician. Has that individual or the arena as a whole, as far as the air infiltration system, are you up to date on that, up to speed as far as having a MERV 13 at least in there? Or what is the status of that? Thank you.
It's a great question, Bill. The fact is our HVAC technician that we have on site, which is Tom Mink, has been at the building for over 22 years, I think it is, 23 years. And he has stayed up on all of the new technologies that have come out every year. He works very closely with Eastern and all of the other top companies in the area. And the MERV 13 filters have been ordered, and they should be here within the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks. We won't have any events prior to them being installed. We did do a test on the MERV 13 filter to make sure that our systems would be okay and be compatible and not put any wear and tear on the systems, because it does block more airflow. But to the county's credit, recent capital improvements were such that much of the equipment, the HVAC equipment in the building, was replaced in the last 3 years. And so the systems are state-of-the-art, computerized systems, and the MERV 13 filters will do a great job when we get them installed. And we have a lot of capability to bring in outside air with this system, and the ability to exhaust the air out of the arena is fabulous as well. So I think the air in the building is going to be safer than any indoor building in the capital region.
Okay, that's great to hear. And once again, I appreciate all your efforts. It breaks my heart that you and the county and everyone has to go through this, but it is what it is. But thank you.
Thank
you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Ricard. And Mr. Belber, again, thank you for your presentation this evening. And you gave a great one, and everyone, I'm sure, is feels a little better about the information that they did receive. Thank you very much.
Sure, you're welcome.
I just wanted to give, this is a little teaching moment right now. If you want to raise your hand, as Mr. Bergdorf and Miss Allison McLean Lane did, you go into participants, find your name, and then you will see that you can raise your hand. When you are finished talking, though, you have to go back in there and put your hand down.
I'll lower their hands.
Okay, all right.
Do you have to do that when you go the other way too?
Madam Chair, is my hand still up? Holy
Oh,
smokes.
your hand is not up, Lynn. Mr. Bergdorf.
Mine is.
Yes, Mr. Bergdorf, he's still up. And
thank you,
very
Madam Chair. I just lowered
good.
mine.
And so when you raise your hand, I can see it. And then that's how I will send you a message to let you know that I have recognized that you have your hand up. And then I will let you know where you are in being able to speak. Is everybody good with that?
Wanda, is my hand down now?
Yes, it is, Mr. Bergdorf.
Thank you. That was a teaching moment. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Did you put your hand back up for a reason? Who? You.
Lynn's hand's up.
There you go. Okay. We're good.
You know, it's different on the phone, but that's okay. You can do it through the more dots too, but then it says to lower your hand. You don't have
That's right. You lower your hand. Okay, thank you.
We're good.
Thank you very much, everyone. So now we are going to move on, and we're going on to recreation and Mr. John D'Antonio. And I just want to remind everyone, please stay on point. We are talking about the budget.
This is Carolyn. I've joined the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Carolyn. Please stay on topic, and the topic is the budget. So, and I'll just repeat this, Mr. D'Antonio, legislators have been provided with your written responses to our budget information request letter, and we thank you for your cooperation in providing them. However, in order to complete a more thorough examination of your budget, it may be necessary to forward you some additional questions after tonight's hearing. So now, Mr. D'Antonio, please provide us with a 2 to 3 minute summary of your budget and how it meets your department needs for 2021. And as I open this up for questions, I want every member to realize that right now there are over 20 members on, over 25 on tonight. So let's be, a little bit sensitive that, others may have questions. Thank you very much. Proceed, Mr. D'Antonio.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman. Hope all is well with you and your family. Well, first of all, I'd like to just start off. I'm sure, as all of us know, 2020 has been a very challenging year for all of us. From the Department of Recreation standpoint, just to let you know, we were getting ready to start and launch our programming in March when the pandemic came. And unfortunately, we had to suspend all of our programs. So at that point in time, we, as a department, unfortunately, couldn't run any of our programs for our kids throughout the county. So what we had to do was we had to become creative and think outside the box. And for the first 2 months, as you know, from March and April and pretty much mid-May, we could not do any programs. And it was very frustrating from our standpoint because we had a long list of programs that we were ready to launch and we had to suspend them. So with that being said, we started to talk to the county executive and the deputy county executive and the county executive staff. And we became creative and thought outside the box of different ways we could provide some programming for our youth in Albany County when the New York State guidelines were going to be eased up a little bit as far as having kids participate in programs. So in May, we came up with a social distancing program. And that social distancing program consists of different types of programs that we could have for our kids in the summer months. And some of the things that we came up with a social distancing type of format was things such as cornhole, badminton, karate, wiffle ball, dodgeball, arts and crafts, and some different things. All of those programs provided social distancing, which was required by New York State guidelines. So we provided a summer camp in two parks in Cohoes and Bethlehem. And unfortunately, we weren't able to do it throughout the county because we had a short period of time to try to put this together. But I would say that we were very successful in providing some type of programming for our youth in the summer. And I'm very happy to say that it was well received throughout the county. We got numerous feedback on parents thanking us for providing programs such as these social distancing programs. But the thing that really struck me with the compliments that we got back was that we were able to follow all of the safety precautions that we put forth, which was hand sanitizers at every station, making sure that the children were wearing face masks. And obviously when they checked in, we were doing thermometer checks. So we really did a good job of making sure that the safety precautions were taken. The parents were very happy with that. And the program went tremendously well. Again, we got tremendous feedback from a lot of parents and from the kids. And I'm happy to say that, you know, we did a great job because when we put these programs in place, it was in mid-May. Nobody in the capital region area was coming up with any type of programming at that point in time because of the New York State guidelines. And we were the first to come out with a program, a social distancing program that provided different activities for kids. So I'm really happy to say, thanks to the county executive and the deputy county executive and the county executive staff working with our department, we did a real good job in providing these programs this summer when unfortunately we weren't able to do our normal programming. So I just wanted to touch on that.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Ms. Lakakis?
About the telephone bill and why it went up so much.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
I was wondering about the telephone bill. It just looked like it had a big hop. Is that internet or just?
Yeah, yes, we upgraded our phone system at the lake, Lawson Lake, and obviously that had something to do with it, as well as we're looking to upgrade our phone system up at the hockey rink as well. So I think that's why you see that spike there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Miller?
Hi, Mr. Antonio. Thanks for being with us tonight. And
thank you.
As a public school teacher in my other life, I definitely appreciate your effort to get something for our kids to do out there. It's been a big struggle for sure. So
thank you. Appreciate that.
This is my first budget go through, so just bear with me a little bit. You have a temporary helpline. Can you sort of explain to me a little bit what's covered in that temporary helpline, and with the overall lack of program that was able to go on, why is that up 50%?
Well, the temporary helpline is with our hockey facility. We hire people obviously through our hockey facility and the temporary helpline. We're also looking to increase some staff positions with Lawson Lake, because obviously we've taken on a whole different dynamic with programming up there. So we need staff on the weekends. So that's why you'll see some type of increase within our temporary help line.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Plotsky?
Thank you, Chairwoman. Just a quick question for Mr. Gaetano. On the line that's special rec facility charges, 590,000 in revenue. What's that from? At the very bottom of the page.
John,
Bear with me, please.
John, do you want me to take that one?
Yes, if you could, Dave. I'm trying to look through my notes now.
Okay, the vast majority of that is rental charges at the hockey facility itself.
And we're charging others for.
Yeah, we charge either teams to use it, or there are open skate periods where individuals can come in and play.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
Mr. Grimm?
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. With the recreation program cut back so much, John, I'm wondering, what did you do to keep our employees productive? Because there were no furloughs, correct?
No furloughs.
So how do we keep our employees productive for much of this year?
Great question. Going back to my opening summary, we were able to use our staff, internal staff, to run the summer camps. So we didn't contract out to any vendors. We used our own staff to run those summer camps.
What like the rink guys? Because I know the rink issue was really diminished too. What do you do with rink facility people?
Well, the rink facility, as you know, the rink opened up and I think it was in July. We reopened the rink up, and we've been open ever since. There's no competitive play going on, but there's a lot of groups that are using it, and it's basically skills and drills. That's what we've limited to, because again, we are adhering to all the rules that are set forth by the New York State guidelines. So obviously the rink is open. It's been open. We've been doing very well as far as from a revenue standpoint, but there is no competitive play. It's just basically all skills and drills.
Yeah, I would encourage you to be as creative as possible, to keep the employees productive. And that's one example. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
John.
you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. Mr. Bergdorf?
Thank you, John, for being here this evening.
Thank you, Paul.
I had a question too about the temporary help and the youth recreation programming. Because of the dramatic cutbacks that you had, there's a total of close to $300,000 there. Are you going to have a balance left over at the end of 2020 that you can turn back to the county? David Soros told us last night that he was going to have a substantial balance because of the close down of the courts and the fact that he had budgeted for complete operations for a year and there were significant savings. So I assume because you didn't have to hire any outside vendors, you used your staff, and for temporary help and youth recreation programming, you didn't chew up that $300,000. So do you have balances left that will go towards closing our deficit in 2020?
I'm sure there will be some balances there, Paul. I don't want to give you a direct number tonight and have you hold me to that number, but
I wouldn't ask you to. I just want...
No, there will be balances. I've been working very closely with management and budget. As I indicated earlier, Paul, not being able to do our normal programming and having our contractors come in and do that, we were able to save money this year, obviously, to give back. And I think we did a good job of that. And we were also able to provide some programming, as I indicated, because we were getting a lot of phone calls come, May, end of April, May, with parents that were wondering if we were going to have any programs at all. And that's why we became creative and thought outside the box and came up with this summer program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bergdorf. Ms. McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. D'Antonio, for being here tonight. Appreciate all the work that you've done to try to address the needs of our young people.
Thank you, Carolyn.
But I'm going to ask you, I'd like to know what percentage of your budget, I know you said you didn't have programs everywhere, and I noticed you did a lot of stuff like in the river towns and up in the, so I was wondering, what kind of plans do you have in 2021 to bring some of those specific programs that you took to maybe Bern or Altamont or Ward of Elite? Are you going to be able to bring into the city of Albany?
Well, Carolyn, first of all, it's great seeing you again. I haven't seen you in a while.
I know it's been a while.
Hope all is well with you.
Yes, it is.
But no, that's a great question. And I know that's a question that's been asked. I know last year that was brought up. Madam Chairwoman would obviously indicate that that was brought up last year as part of our budget. From our perspective, and I don't want to speak, but I think that from the county executive standpoint, my standpoint, we are more than happy to do some type of programming in the city of Albany. I just don't think, and I can't speak prematurely, but I don't think we've been contacted by anybody in the city of Albany. I think from our standpoint, we'd be more than willing to work with the city of Albany on providing some programs. I think that's a conversation that has to be taken between the county executive and the people, the officials in the city of Albany.
Well, I hope you would encourage that in light of what we're going through with violence right now. I think that any opportunities that we have to provide meaningful, positive activities would be very helpful. I'm particularly thinking of a program I've seen at the Boys and Girls Club, that the mobile music machine that they just started. There's something like that could certainly use additional support so that that program could move around the city and some of the neighborhoods that are most adversely affected right now with crime. So I hope that you would take that back and take that under advisement and make yourselves available to support something such as that.
Well, I appreciate that, Carolyn. And Carolyn, you know, we've worked very close together over the years. My heart is near and dear to the inner city youth, always has been. And I think you've seen reflection of that when I was commissioner with the city of Albany. And I'd be more than happy to go back and talk to the county executive. Like I said, I'm sure he'd be more than happy to do that as well and have an open dialogue with the mayor and obviously the officials in the city of Albany.
Thank you very much. And I look forward to carrying on that conversation with you.
Thank you, Carolyn. And again, great seeing you.
You too.
Thank you, Carolyn. I don't know who somebody needs to mute themselves right now. Thank you very much. Ms. McLean Lane.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I appreciate your recognizing me. Hello, Mr. D'Antonio. My name is
Good
Allison
evening. How are
McLean
you?
Lane. Good. How are you?
Good.
Was the Lawson's Lake facility this summer utilized for camp, or how was that facility utilized?
Yes, it was utilized. We did have the Boys and Girls Club, but as I'm sure you know, we had to have a limited number of kids,
of course,
based on the social distancing. But we were able to provide some programming up there. Brian and his staff have done a tremendous job up there, and we were able to do some type of programming up there, but not with the number of kids that we normally do.
Was there any overtime used there this year?
No overtime use.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
The house that is there, how is that utilized in the winter? That's always been a little confusing for me. Like, how is that house utilized?
What house are you particularly?
There is a house there.
On the main road?
My kids were actually in the camp. So I guess there's a facility there that has.
The Waldman Lodge, I think you might be talking about.
Best, exactly. I'm sorry
Okay.
that I wasn't clear. I
No,
apologize.
that's okay. That's okay. Well, we do have requests from outside groups, you know, Boy Scouts. We have a long list of people that obviously like to use it during the winter months.
Oh, wonderful.
But unfortunately, because of the COVID, we haven't been able to really schedule a lot of events there. We are taking on some, but not many. So we're not under our normal schedule
Yeah,
when it comes
yeah.
to the lake, as you know.
Yes, I know. And my children actually did attend the camp there for a season. And I think it is a wonderful opportunity. Obviously we weren't on the scaled payment, but a lot of the other kids were. And
Right.
I think it's a wonderful opportunity for children. And I think that facility is a lovely facility. It's also wonderful because a lot of the kids there, they'd never seen a lake before.
No, I call it the hidden jewel in Albany County. That's what it
Yes.
is.
Thank
More
you very
people need
much,
to take
Ms.
advantage of it, and I appreciate your question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. D'Antonio.
Thank you.
I release my time, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. McLean Lane. Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two questions. How many youths, before COVID, how many youths took advantage of going out to Lawson Lake? That's winter and summer. Do you have any idea?
It fluctuates year to year. I could work on getting you a breakdown over the last few years prior to 2020, but the number does fluctuate. I'd have to get you that. I could provide that information to you.
Okay. And one last question about the hockey rink. Youth groups that travel outside the capital region or outside New York to other states during COVID, are they allowed to come back and participate in let's say any other hockey? Are they able to come back into the hockey arena?
We haven't had any outside groups using our.
No, I'm talking about, let's say, a hockey team from, let's say, Troy. They go over and play over in Connecticut or Pennsylvania or Massachusetts, then they come back without quarantine.
Well, we don't experience that, so I couldn't answer that question, because any groups that are using our facility are basically teams within the capital region area. They're not traveling outside.
But a lot of them do travel outside the capital region.
Under normal circumstances, they do, but I don't think.
I know they have been, and that's one of my constituents has a concern about that. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Is there any specific group that you know that I could look into?
I can certainly talk to you about that later.
If you could give me a call, I'd be more than happy to look into it for you.
I just
Thank
want
you.
to know what the policy is.
No, I appreciate that. And like I said, if you can give me a call, I'll look into it for you.
Because now I read today that Connecticut and New Jersey and possibly Pennsylvania are on the could be on the next states that aren't allowed to come in without quarantine.
Okay.
In New York. So that's a concern.
Nope, well taken. And like I said, I'll look into that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Clay.
John, how are you this evening?
Mr. Clay, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing fine. It's good to see you.
Great to see you.
John, quick question. Do you have any programs running in Albany at all? Any programs?
At this current time, we don't, Mr. Clay, we don't have any programs that are running in the city of Albany. As I was indicating earlier to Mrs. McLaughlin, I know from our standpoint, from the counties, that the county executive and myself would be more than happy to sit down with the mayor or city officials from Albany to talk about a collaboration. We'd be more than happy to talk to them and try to work on something. I'm sure that would be no problem, but we haven't heard anything from the city of Albany.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Great seeing you.
Same here.
Thank you very much. John, I just want to thank you for your presentation this evening, and it is good to see you, and I hope your family as well.
Great. Madam Chair, always good talking to you. You have a great evening.
You too. Thank you. Thank you. All right, everyone, before we move on, I just want to remind you of one thing, that we got to stay on topic here. We're talking about the budget tonight. We would be more than happy. Staff is keeping track of the questions that everyone is asking. Please remember the email that we have set up for people to ask questions. And if you don't get a chance to do it tonight, and we'll make sure that you get your responses. The other thing is this, please take advantage of the chat and please, and watch it, because that's how I'm calling on you. If you don't see a message, if you're not looking at the chat, you won't know that I've recognized you, okay? Or I haven't recognized you. All right, so now we're gonna move on. And the next one was supposed to be water.
Cornell Cooperative.
Cornell Cooperative. Cornell, and
Following that will be water purification.
and
I'm here.
okay. Oh, hi, how are you this evening?
Good. How are you?
Oh, good, great. I'm just gonna remind you of the same thing, and I want the legislators to hear this too. The legislators have been provided with your written responses to our budget information request letter, and we thank you for your cooperation in providing them. However, in order to complete a more thorough examination of your budget, it may be necessary to forward you some additional questions after tonight's hearing. Now, please provide us with a 2 to 3 minute presentation of your budget and how it meets your department's needs for 2021. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. And thank you so much, Madam Chair and members of the legislature, for allowing me a few minutes to speak to you. You know, just like many of the speakers have spoken tonight, we did have a blip in our direct programming that we do across Albany County. It didn't last long for us, though. Our 50 staff are extremely resilient, and they very quickly learned how to move programming to a virtual environment. So while we got up and running with that through the spring months, we officially were back in the office around June 18th, and we were able to get all of our programs back up and running. Although be it some of them still remain virtual, but some of the more essential and critical programs that we do, we did find a way to do those safely. So I did this past week send out a recent publication to all of you that outlines some of the specific things that we have done over the past few months during these challenging times, just so that you know that we haven't missed a beat. We are still out there. We have been at the summer feeding sites. We've been at the farmers markets. We've been providing all sorts of youth, adult, senior programs. We've been doing direct programming for farms as a critical need, and all of our other essential programs that we provide for the county, HEAP, summer cooling, a lot of our healthy neighborhoods programs, all of those have kept on going on. So fingers crossed that we can keep up that good work. Our budget is in line with what we requested. Although with the county exec having come through with an additional 2%, you know that in past years, Cooperative Extension tries to keep in line with the county's recommendation. And as a quasi-governmental department, we too request that you would consider that for us as well. That's it.
Madam Chairman or Chairwoman, if I could just insert, we have the numbers from Lisa already. We'll be including that in our side letter of, you know, little fixes and changes that we need to do. I've already been talking to the staffers about those.
Thank you so much. All right, Lisa, we just want to thank you for your presentation. And I know that this has been a hard road for everyone. And so we're going to move on now. I don't think we have any questions of you.
Okay.
So you must be doing
Great.
a fantastic
Just let
job.
me know at any time. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you. We're going to move on now to water purification, Mr. Gaudio. And I'm going to repeat my opening statement. Legislators have been provided with your written responses to our budget information request letter, and we thank you for your cooperation in providing them. However, in order to complete a more thorough examination of your budget, it may be necessary to forward you some additional questions after tonight's hearing. Now, please provide us with a 2-minute summary of your budget and how it meets your department's needs for 2021. Thank you. Mr. Gaudio? Where is he?
doesn't have a microphone.
Can you see him?
He's on the very last page, but he doesn't have a microphone.
Angelo, you got yourself muted on your end. Your phone is muted.
Doesn't he have to press star or something?
Go on to the next one and we'll get it.
Okay, after we're gonna have to we have technical difficulties with Mr. Gaudio, so we'll move on and then come back to him. And so our next presenter is Stormwater.
Yeah. Can you hear me? This is Nancy Heinzen.
Nancy?
Yeah, could you hear me?
I can hear you. Okay.
Yeah, but there's no video, so I don't have a webcam.
Okay, so announce yourself, please.
Yes, so I'm Nancy Heinzen, the Director of the Stormwater Coalition of Albany County. And I'll just carry on, okay?
Thank you. Please give us a 2 to 3 minute presentation on your budget and how it meets the needs of your department.
Okay, yeah, first of all, thank you to the committee and the legislature for giving me this chance to share with you our budget. As many of you know, the purpose of the coalition is to implement mandated DEC stormwater permit requirements. It provides a framework for sharing services among all the members. Some members contribute additional dues for additional services. The 2021 budget is basically bare bones and helps us implement those goals. Prepares members as well for an anticipated updated stormwater permit. Hopefully that'll come in this year because we've all been waiting for a long time for that. Since many have been talking about the 2020 COVID response, what happened for the coalition, we intended to hire 2 people in March. That was the GIS coordinator position and the coalition stormwater program tech. We immediately put that on hold given COVID. Also, because most of the coalition budget is funded through local municipal dues, we also were uncertain about their ability to pay into the coalition for the upcoming year. So we really have been waiting to get more clear financial information before hiring. So those are 2 vacant positions, and we feel secure enough now to go forward with hiring them as part of the 2020 budget. So the thing to point out for our budget is the fact that the Coalition Board of Directors, you'll see them all listed on the memo there, did approve the 2021 budget. That was all the members. There's some slight changes. We dropped the part-time coalition outreach specialist position, mostly because we didn't feel that we could afford it necessarily. The telephone line dropped down because that cost was transferred. It was for a data plan to the members themselves. We also increased the miscellaneous contractual expense line to cover the cost of a GIS consultant services, which we've been using ongoing, but that we wanted to expand that in case we didn't hire a GIS coordinator quickly. I'm pleased to say that the members all formally committed to their dues amount, and the county as well in terms of their host role. So we're very solid in terms of the financial commitment for 2021, very firmly committed to the staffing levels that are in the budget. There is a slight modification that will need to the budget that has to do with the unexpected 2% increase on salary lines. What the coalition board approved was the requested amount for coordinator, JS coordinator, and stormwater program tech. We'd like to keep it flat for the JS coordinator at $65,000 and the stormwater program tech for $18,720. That's because that's all that the members can afford at this point based on our June meeting. Possibly do the 2% increase. I know historically the coalition has tried to keep coalition salaries in step with non-union 2% cost of living increases. But that is something that the board will need to decide on. It's a meeting we can arrange relatively quickly in time for the county legislature to know if the board has approved that, in which case then that salary line would go up to $68,292 along with fringe. So that's the essence of our budget. And any questions?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. There is a question. computer supplies line is up $4,700 from 2,300 in 2019. Can you explain why?
Yeah, well, right, 2,300, I'd have to recollect what we were doing 2019. That's lower because we were supplementing that budget line with grant money at the time. That grant money dropped out as of 2020, so now we're covering it with dues. And that you can see it's steady for 2020, then roughly going into 2021, it's the same.
Thank you. And there is a $23,810 transfer from Stormwater Reserve.
Yeah, correct.
And could you also explain how the reserve is used in relation to the coalition's operations?
Yeah, so the coalition was set up at the outside to have a standalone budget that would, so that all of our dues coming in from the municipalities would be matched by expenses. If we don't use up, spend down all of the revenue from dues, then it's moved into a reserve. And that reserve is calculated annually by the comptroller. It's a formula that involves, actual revenue, actual expenses. It addresses encumbrances, and it's resolved that way. The issue too is members feel very, they want to make sure that the dues money they put in, which totals 170,000 roughly per year, that it's fully spent on program needs, and what isn't spent, that they can rely on it for potential expenses going forward. And the reserve is our method for doing that.
Thank you very much. Do I have any questions from any members? Thank you, Ms. Heinzman. Thank you for coming tonight and making your presentation.
Thank you for your time.
Well.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Mr. Gaudio, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sorry for the technical glitch.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm going to repeat my opening. Legislators have been provided with your written responses to our budget information request letter, and we thank you for your cooperation for providing them. However, in order to complete a more thorough examination of your budget, it may be necessary to forward you some additional questions after tonight's hearing. Please provide us with a 2 to 3 minute summary of your budget now and how it meets your department's needs for 2021. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I do apologize for the technical hiccup there. Yeah, as most everybody's aware, we operate 2 wastewater facilities within the county, and I just would like to take this opportunity to really recognize our staff. Unlike other departments, we were basically showing up every day during the height of COVID, and our guys did a tremendous job of really kind of protecting our waterways, and really had dedication to the county and to the district. So I just want to recognize them. We feel that the 2021 budget accurately reflects the district needs. Financially, we've had a series of emergency repairs this year, and I think really from the perspective of our facilities are circa 1970. We are basically sitting on 2 treatment plants that are going on 50 years old, and they have a significant amount of a need. So we do feel that the increases that are requested provide a good balance of the needs that we have at both facilities, and also are cognizant of kind of the increases that we're asking for, and really minimizing those charges to our member communities. So with that, I'll just open it up to any questions.
Thank you very much. All right, I'll just start with, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Ms. Willingham. Appreciate that. Hi, Mr. Gatto. How are you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Good. I just had a couple of quick questions. It's in the report you provided to us, and it's the numbers are piddling in terms of the size of your budget. But just a quick question on the changes in the random drug testing and the pre-employment physicals.
Yes.
Again, total drop in the bucket, but did they really go up 50% or almost 100% rather? Shouldn't be doubling in cost?
Yes, and I think that was something, it took me by surprise as well. I think those numbers hadn't been adjusted in a couple of years. So when we went and actually got numbers or costs for those ended up are the actual numbers.
Okay.
For, I'll say since June of 2020.
Okay, so it's something that had to be updated, right? Again, it's a total useless number in a $10 million budget, but it just seemed to be interesting that it jumped so high.
But yeah, I think that was something where, we probably hadn't gotten a quote for it in a few years, and we went out and did that this year just to kind of confirm the cost.
Okay, appreciate it. And then the other question I had was, you have a significant amount of unfilled positions. I know I met you out there in February, March, and so what you guys do. But how those unfilled positions affecting your operations, your ability to operate what you need to do, and what are we doing? How are we managing recruiting to try to fill those positions?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's challenging. Obviously, with what we do, it's difficult to recruit in general. So it's really something where we need to kind of make an effort to fill those. We are actively pursuing at least 3 positions. Earlier this year, we actually did fill the chief maintenance mechanic. Unfortunately, we had to let that person go just due to some performance issues. So we kind of had to start over with that. Some of the other positions, we did have one of our employees actually left to a competing, I'll say, facility within the county. So again, I think with the kind of the idea of staff retention, we are currently looking at ways to make sure that our employees kind of can stay put, and we're incentivizing them to do so. So I think that's also going to be a challenge. Obviously, we don't want to lose any employees if we can avoid it, especially to other in-county facilities.
Okay. And that would be my last follow-up on that, which is in your budget, is there any plans to add training lines or anything like that to train people to come into the position, get them hired and then train them on the job, or to retain those people? Is there anything in your budget for that right now?
Yeah, we do that now. There are lines. That's probably something we're going to have to probably look at really closely going forward as to whether those increases to training, I guess what those increases need to be to really kind of justify what we're asking for. I think one of the things that we are looking for, and again, just so everyone's aware, we are currently in negotiations with CSEA. Our staff are basically looking to do a new collective bargaining unit. So part of that negotiation, though, is to look at requiring certifications for our operators. So with that, there's going to be additional training. So we are looking at that currently. And there likely will have to be increases in the budgets to accommodate some of those certification needs.
Love to see that, and then hopefully that would help some of that issue with filling those jobs, so we can hire somebody off the street and then give them the training they need. Thank you for your time, Angela. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lakakis.
Couple questions. Just occurred to me when Matt asked his question about the physicals, the cost of the physicals. Maybe in the interest of shared services, we can look at having their physicals at the jail or at the nursing home where they are some medical professionals. But anyway, my question was also about recruitment as opposed to training, because I know what you do to, visit engineering programs and try to, get people to join your staff. But is there anything in the budget, or do you want to add anything to the budget, to help with that? Or is that all? Is it all covered within your?
Yeah, I guess on that side of it, we do have, for our process operators, we do have a continuous recruitment. We actually just requested the exam be reissued for our process operators 1. So some of that's happening already. I do think that's probably something we should consider, depending on, really what we get for candidates in the door, as to whether we need to kind of up our, or be more aggressive with our in-person recruitment. So whether we're going to BOCES or other programs to be more aggressive with kind of reaching out to individuals, I think that's something that to be determined, but I think that would probably be a good idea going forward, because again, we certainly are in an industry where it's difficult to get people in. Obviously, if someone can kind of work an office job, it's hard kind of selling them on coming here because of kind of what they're going to be exposed to, or at least the perception of it. So, but I think that's something that we really need to address, going forward.
And then I had one more quick question, not for here. I would just like to get an update on the digesters, but it doesn't have to be now. So
yeah, that's a loaded question. So I certainly would, if you want to call me.
Yes, I will.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Bergdorf. Where'd he go? Did I lose him?
He's on mute, Madam Chair.
Mr. Bergdorf, could you unmute yourself?
Thank you. Lynn, that was a great question about the digester. That was my first question. And perhaps you and I could do a conference call with Angelo, because I would love to know how the digester is going to affect the 2021 budget. So that was the overview question. But I have three small questions, Angelo.
Okay.
In your narrative, you talk about how you are currently in negotiation with CSEA, and I saw from your budget detail sheets, you put them in the 2021 budget at the same dollar figure that they were in 2020. Assuming that you reach agreement with them, how far back retroactive would a contract be?
2020 would be the first year that they have not received an adjustment. So we would look to do something probably retroactive 2020, and then potentially 2021, depending on when the contract gets ratified and when approvals can occur.
So that would be, if that were to happen, that would be a mid-year amendment or expenditure that the legislature might have to consider.
Most likely that's probably what will happen, just given where we are in the negotiations and where we are with kind of the legislative cycle.
Okay, all righty. Thank you. I noticed on the G Fund summary from 2020, you made a transfer to the capital fund of $650,000, and there was no transfer anticipated in 2021. Does this tie into the schedule for the digester and an update of the north and south plants?
Actually, that 650 was appropriated for building improvements tied to the South Plant screening project as part of the Beaver Creek. And the decision was made not to do those building improvements because there was additional costs that were being requested of us that we just didn't feel were warranted at this time. So we opted not to do any of those roof improvements and structural work. We talked to Arcadis and then the city of Albany, and the screens can be installed without having to do those repairs at this point. And I think the concern was, in the height of COVID, we didn't really know what the bidding atmosphere was going to be. And I think some of the requests of the city and the engineers were that that expenditure back to us could have been as high as $1 million. So we just didn't feel comfortable at this time kind of taking that additional debt on it, I guess, as part of that project. So we opted not to do that. There are temporary supports in place. So structurally, the building is stable, so there's no concerns on that side of it. But that's how we kind of came to that decision.
So ultimately, you did or did not transfer the money?
Did not. No.
Did not. Thank you.
Okay, thank
one last small question.
And Paul, I just want to say, okay, I do want him to get something in about the digester. So if you could, shorten your question.
It's a quickie,
okay,
Wanda. I'm taking a look at the proposed overtime. This year, you've got, you had a budget of $212K. You've spent 147 year to date. There's 2 months left, and you're going back to 212. Although I do see in 2019, you spent 218. Is there any reason that this year there was less overtime?
Yeah, it was actually COVID related. for 2 months, we ended up going on an emergency schedule where we basically, as a kind of a way to protect our staff, transitioned to a 12-hour shift. And at the height of it, we basically locked everybody down. So we essentially paired our operators in teams of 2 along with the solids operators. And as part of that, we requested that they not take any time off. So basically, we had 2 months where our staff worked, diligently for those 2 months without taking any extra time off. And as a result, we just didn't have the normal overtime from people taking vacations and taking time off.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Yes. Mr. Guardio, if you can, just get briefly, tell us the situation with the digester and if the pandemic has had any effect on that project.
It has to a certain degree. There has been some, I would say, productivity delays assigned to just COVID and kind of that transition of our engineering team working from home. This is, again, probably a bigger discussion, but we are currently looking at doing some additional evaluation as it relates to sludge production numbers assigned to Saratoga. So we're looking at some of the metrics that were originally in the feasibility study to see if there's going to be significant impacts to us. So that's currently where we are with that. Saratoga is currently evaluating their secondary wastewater process, and as a result of that evaluation that they're doing on their own, sludge production potentially is going to be increasing. So we're just kind of reevaluating the sludge numbers as it relates to the digester project.
I do believe that you were correct in that we probably are going to need a more extensive response in regards to the digester and all the questions that will come up.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
what I am going to try to do right now, I'm just going to ask you some questions, and one of them is there's a $450,000 transfer from debt reserves. Is down from 1.25 million in 2020. Can you tell us why?
A part of that, again, of the 1.25 from this year, 650 again was of that project for the south plant, so that we're not doing that this year. We also have been in past years transferring money to our debt service line to help our communities. So we have reduced that amount from $300,000 to $200,000 proposed for next year. And then the other amount was just for expenses for the year that we just don't incur, we aren't planning on incurring in 2021. So the majority of that reduction is really tied to the $650,000 that wasn't expended as part of the South Plant structural work that was programmed for this year.
Okay, and let me just ask another one. And why is the electric line down $500,000?
For 2021?
Yes.
I'll have to get back to it. I believe we held the original electric amount as it was for 2020. I think it was
Okay, let's see.
there was an adjusted amount because there was certain monies encumbered on that line. So I don't know if that's the difference.
That's the difference. Yes, that's okay. Yes, yes, that is the difference.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Yep. I want to thank you for your presentation, and we will have some questions that we will send to you, and hoping for a response, and we'll get them out to the members. So thank you very much for your presentation. And,
all right, thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, and stay safe. Good night. All right, our next speaker is Mr. Blanchard, Information Services. Are you with us? Oh, there you are.
I am.
Okay, there you
How are you?
Okay, have you heard my opening statement?
I have.
Okay, very good. All right, so please begin with the 2 to 3 minute presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, everyone. Information Services services the technology needs of the county employees and to some degree the public. We maintain services for 2,000 employees and over 30 physical locations. Demand for our services only grows, but I feel we've been able to maintain the same level of service. The greatest challenge of this year was obviously adapting to a teleworkforce. We quickly had to move to the teleworkforce in March, supplying equipment, and ordering additional services to allow the workers to connect from home, and to some degree also maintaining security. Additionally, aiding the health department with additional technology needs in a quick moment. For 2021, we are fortunate to be able to reduce our needs for some equipment and software due to refresh cycles. We'll also continue to seek out grant funding in 2021 to offset anything we've budgeted, particularly in the security area. Concerns for the future, retirements, several plus retirements in the next 2 to 5 years. So making sure we bring employees in to start to train them to the same degree of these long-term employees. Overall, we were able to work with management budget to produce a sound budget without affecting services for county employees and without compromising the security of our network. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The first question is has to do with the computer equipment line. It's down from 58,000 from 2020.
Correct. Last year we budgeted for, I believe, 240 workstations. We needed a heavier refresh on our workstations this year. A lot of our workstations were aging out and we're not able to run the latest operating systems. So we ordered more workstations this year than we are going to next year. So between reducing the number of workstations and the licenses for office licensing that corresponds with those purchases, we're able to reduce that line.
Thank you. One other question is airport services revenue is up $100,000.
Correct. This year we entered an agreement with the airport after they had their security incident earlier this year. We engaged in an agreement. The current agreement is going to end sometime in November. That is to provide some services to help out their IT department at the airport. And they had a conversation about extending that into next year for 2 cycles.
Right, very good. I thank you for your presentation. Mr. Bergdorf.
Quick question, Perry.
Okay.
From your list of your contractual listing for computer supplies, I see that numbers 1 through, I think, 27, which you must have purchased in years past, you're no longer putting in for. Does that reflect what you described before as the refresh period for software?
Correct. Some of those services we discontinued over the years and they've just kind of lagged into the budget. Others we may have purchased for 2 to 3 years. So we're just holding that line.
Okay. And last question, just a generic question. Cybersecurity. Just this week we were reading about it again. Someone else was held up, to use the term. Are we? You seem to have done a wonderful job in inoculating us. Are we comfortable that we have the cutting edge cybersecurity protection?
We're doing the best we can. I don't think any IT leader would say they're 100% feeling secure. It's on a daily basis, you see more and more hacks and in the same situation, but I think we're doing the best we can. I've been fortunate to use grant monies and our budget to bring in some of the better products out there just in the last 2 years, increasing our security. We continue to do so.
Thank you.
Yep.
You guys do a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your presentation this evening. We're going to wish you a good night. Have a pleasant evening. And thank you again.
Thank you. Good night.
All right, we will now move on to human resources. Ms. Clement, are you there?
I am. Good evening, Madam Chairwoman.
Okay, I don't know if you're speaking low or.
Can you hear me now?
Kind of. Yeah.
Very light.
I can hear her fine.
All right. Are
How
you ready?
about now? Is that better?
That's better. Yes.
Okay. Good evening. The Department of Human Resources budget is just minor increases, nothing substantive. And we feel that the 2021 budget represents our ability to continue to provide services effectively and efficiently into 2021. I would be happy to answer any specific questions you have regarding our next year's budget.
All right. I'll get Mr. Peter.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you, Ms. Clement, for coming in to talk to us today. I know it's been a crazy year, and I'm sure there'll be a crazy one ahead of us. So this is something that you probably can't answer tonight, and I'm fine with waiting a few weeks for this. And I started off asking all departments this, and I figure I'll just ask it for countywide from you. But I was hoping to get a report on salary to budget levels. So in short, a comparison of countywide budget lines, and then comparatively the actual salary lines that are used for that budget. Is that something you would be able to produce for us, in let's say 2 weeks?
Sure, it's no problem.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you very much, Ms. Clement.
Thank you. I just have several questions, and let's see. You requested no year-to-year decrease in your fees for services. However, you were able to transfer a total of $12,000 out of this line into the current year. So what has changed with respect to the expenses in this line?
That transfer is, I'd have to go look to see specifically what I believe that was for to cover costs associated with COVID. We were covering, previously we were covering exam fees that we were paying to civil service because there were, Department of Human Resources was supplementing a no fee for exams. So therefore we had additional funds available in our fees for services line because the exams in 2020 were not held for the most part. So we didn't have that charge. Therefore, we used those funds to offset costs that increased costs we had in 2020 associated with COVID, such as additional communications for payroll and other increases that we weren't anticipating.
Okay, thank you. Can you explain why the increase in the conference training and tuition line?
In 2021, we moved funds that we had to increase our budget for online training for the sexual harassment prevention training and other trainings. So we had to purchase software and programming to administer additional trainings. So we needed to increase the funding in order to cover those costs associated with administering county-wide trainings.
Okay. Two other questions. Why is the office equipment down $9,500?
Madam Chairwoman, the $9,500 showing in the 2020 adjusted for office equipment was an encumbrance from the previous year. So there was 0 adopted last year and there is 0 proposed.
Thank you. And the postage is down 3,500 from 9,500 in 2020.
Adopted for postage in both 2020 and proposed for 2021 is both $3,500.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Bergdorf.
Commissioner, curiosity, under your contractual, what does a benefits consultant do? I see you've got it budgeted for $35,000.
Our benefits consultant works on our preparing our RFPs for our health insurance, workers' compensation. They manage the costs for our benefits that are not in HR proper necessarily, but any for our self-insured programs. So Medicare Advantage, unemployment, workers' compensation, health, pharmacy, all of those contracts are managed by the assistance of the benefits consultant, currently with Steve Losey and Losey and Cal, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And just a compliment from your text, one of your goals for 2021 is a health insurance consortium. I am just of the belief that a health insurance consortium between multiple municipalities could be an absolutely wonderful way to save money, spread administrative costs, and is the ultimate shared services. So I would hope that you get the assistance from the other departments that you need in the county to make that a priority.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you very much. Ms. Lakakis?
Hey, hi Jen, thanks for coming. I was wondering if you had any info on how many staff, you don't have to answer these right now, use EAP, because I think it was what, $47,000, and I was just wondering, just wondering. And then
yeah,
I'd like to hear more about the equity agenda coordinator's role and what's going on with that, but that also doesn't have to be this evening.
I appreciate that very much. So did you hear her questions, Ms. Clement?
Yes. So the EAP, we can send a utilization report. Obviously, I believe utilization is significantly up in 2020 from prior years. But we can send you a report to show you employees accessing those services. And then regarding the equity agenda, which is a 5-year plan, and we'd be happy to give you it in a separate forum, an update on that.
Sure. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, so we have established an email, and so we just want to make sure that everything continues to flow through that so everyone can receive answers to all the questions that they've heard. So I want to thank you very much for your presentation tonight, and I hope your family is well, and stay safe, and good night. All right, now we are going to move on. Mr. Lally, are you there?
I am. Good evening, Madam Chair.
All right, this is civil service.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'll give you the introduction here. The legislators have been provided with your written responses to our budget information request letter. In order to complete a more thorough examination of your budget, it may be necessary to forward you some additional questions. Now, if you would like, please provide us a 2 to 3 minute summary of your budget and how it meets your department's needs for 2021.
All right. Well, thank you for having me tonight. Good evening as well to the members of the legislature. So our 2021 budget is going to allow us to continue to serve the people of Albany County the same as we have in years past. 2021 was a very different year for us, 2020 rather. We did not hold a lot of exams this year because COVID prevented us with social distancing measures. However, we did have a lot of retention lists that we had to create for the different jurisdictions that we serve. Beyond Albany County, we serve 65 jurisdictions ranging from the Airport Authority to the Green Island Power Authority. And, you know, like I said, in 2021, I feel confident that this budget will be able to allow us to continue the great service that my department has been able to offer to date.
Thank you very much. If there are no questions, we are going to say thank you for your presentation. And if questions do come up, we'll put it through the email and make sure that you get them. So we're going to bid you good evening and stay safe.
Thank you very much, Legislator.
We are now going to move to Ms. Raimondo for Public Works. Good evening. Now, if you will please provide us with a 2 to 3 minute summary of your budget and how it meets your needs for 2021.
Will do, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. DPW's mission is to ensure that all county roadways, bridges, trails, and recreation.
Lisa?
Yes.
We can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Well, you're very low.
Can you hear me if I speak up like this?
Yes.
You can. Okay, I'll just talk loud. So our mission at DPW is to ensure that all county roadways, trails, recreation areas, and trail facilities are safe and accessible. The county executive afforded DPW a strong budget that's going to enable us to continue to provide the essential services that Albany County residents are accustomed to. As you know, the cost of doing business increases each year. That said, DPW is not going to be increasing its operating budget. We're going to use efficiencies to work within last year's 2020 operational amounts. That said, if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you very much. I'm going to start with a couple of questions. The Capper District transportation is down 30,000 from 60. Can you explain why?
Yes, that is something that historically there was always $60,000 in the budget for that line. And we were billed $30,000 by CDTC. Can you hear me? Okay, now I can't hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
You can, okay. We were historically billed $30,000 a year and then wound up encumbering 30,000 of the previous year's 60,000. There was basically a rollover of $30,000 every year because we would only really ever spend 30. So this year, rather than putting $60,000 into our budget, which it was just done historically, I decided to not have an encumbrance of 30,000 going into the next year. It was just, it's something that need not be in. We're not cutting services. We're still going to get the same service from CDTC. We're just not, we're spending the 30,000 and only putting 30,000 into the budget versus the 60.
Thank you. Special projects is at 0, down from $252,330 in 2020. Is there a particular project that's no longer being funded?
That special projects line is a line for a railroad project in Voorheesville. It's a quiet zone project and it is being funded. It's just that it needs to, I think it needs to be encumbered into next year's budget. It's a grant. There's a grant for the quiet zone, and
Lisa, can I jump in for a second?
Please, Dave.
Yeah, so that was a grant we received from the state, I believe the state assembly. It's been a long time to kind of get to where we are now in the project. A lot of that has to do with the difficulty of all the permitting that has to be done to actually work on a railroad. I think they're probably the most bureaucratic thing we've encountered around here. But yeah, that money will just get rolled over. It's the same grant money that we had, and the project will be completed eventually.
Thank you. Let's see. Just have a few others. Why is the bridge and road repair down 1.8 million?
Bridge and road repair.
Madam Chair,
I'm not sure I'm seeing what you're referring to.
Well, page 304.
Page 304.
The bridge and road repair line, the 3.530.
Yes.
Is that what? Okay, that is a number that we put in each year. It is not down. It was originally, let's see.
Yeah, that's
It's a placeholder that we put into our budget, and it's based on what we anticipate potentially receiving from CHIPS money each year. So this is a placeholder, and we typically put in the 3.530. When we get our CHIPS award for next year, this number will reflect what our actual award is, and we modify the budget based on that. But this is a placeholder.
Yeah, Madam Chairwoman, as you'll see, regardless of how the number fluctuates up or down, it usually trues itself out, sometimes over the course of 2 years. So there is no county share to that, because there's the offsetting grant from the state paying for the actual amount of work being done.
All right, thank you. And why is the overtime budgeted amount so significantly underestimated year after year?
That's a very good question. And we just, we never know year to year what the overtime budget is going to wind up being. We could potentially increase it, but then again, we may not need it. So we've been putting in that consistent number over the last several years, hoping that we don't get hit hard.
All right, thank you. Miss McLean Lane?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate very much you recognizing me. Thank you, Commissioner Raimondo, for coming in this evening. We greatly appreciate it. I have a question. Albany County, exactly how much of the Mohawk Hudson bike path are we responsible for maintaining?
We're responsible for maintaining the portion that begins at the end of the Corning Preserve. Well, actually, take that back. We're responsible for the portion that is in Cohoes, and we're responsible for the Albany County Rail Trail, which is not part of the quote Mohawk Hudson Trail.
Currently, we have a significant problem in Manans, and
Yes.
it is, I have seen documents that do state that there are references to this longstanding, that the county was supposed to do this. The county's not doing it. We have had an unbelievable outreach from numerous bike coalitions, et cetera, greatly concerned about the state of this bike path. And I am truly hoping that at some point in time that this will be addressed. And who do you believe is responsible for that section of the bike path?
At this point, the state, the New York State.
So why are we only responsible for Cohoes?
There were agreements that have been expired. And so to my knowledge, the agreement for the portion of the bike path that runs from the Corning Preserve to Waterville is not our responsibility at this time.
Thank you very much. I release my time, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Bergdorf.
Lisa, a quick follow-up on the overtime. It appears that this year, with $40,000 expended against 243, you have a sizable balance. Now nobody knows what's going to happen in November and December.
Mr. Bergdorf, may I interrupt for 1 second? Because it looks like you didn't get the most up-to-date chart that shows the numbers. That 40,000 is what's left to spend, actually. The actual expenditure is 196,000.
Okay, thank you very much. That
Yep.
makes a bit more sense.
Yep.
I was seeing a windfall.
I know
And,
that. I wish.
Yeah, not the same.
Thank you, Paul.
What do your salt and chemical inventories look like right now?
Right now, we're not 100% stocked. We're actually next week planning on stocking up all of our subdivisions with salt so that we're, ready to go come the first week of November.
So is that normally a 2020 expense, and do you have the ability to cover it under 2020?
Yes, we do.
Okay, that's
Yep.
great. The third thing was, I know that there were some concessions made in capital projects. Could you please just give us a broad stroke look as to what we're delaying and how that relates to any CDTC funding which may be available?
Okay, so this past year, there were 3 projects that we delayed. We delayed Knox Cave Road rehabilitation, Beaver Dam Road rehabilitation, and the bike path, Albany County Rail Trail over I-85.
Okay.
None of them are tied to CDTC monies. All are bonded projects. So they're going to be done, hopefully next construction season.
Okay. So, but all the major county roads, the big ones, the Waterville Shakers, the Carner Road, those will all continue on as scheduled.
Yes, right now we're actually in the design phase of the Waterville Shaker Road project. The new Carner Road project is a design project for 2021.
Okay.
So, yep.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Ms. McLaughlin?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to know, do any of the issues or expenses related to the expansion of the bike trail on South Pearl Street, is that under your purview, or is that just a total state project?
I believe that's city.
And the county has nothing to do with that?
No, we do not.
Okay, that trail it connects with the trail that goes into Slingerlands. And so we have
responsibility on the portion that is the actual rail trail. I thought you were talking about the portion that's within the city of Albany that goes and connects our rail trail to the Corning Preserve. Are you talking about
okay, I think I understand what you're saying. The piece that starts at the public housing and goes to Corning Preserve, that's the city's purview.
Correct.
You're telling me. And so all of that work that's going there, the city's paying for that, the trees and the et cetera.
I believe so. That it's not. I don't know if the city or if the state may have some involvement as well.
I think the state has some involvement in it. I just didn't know whether the county had any part of that at all. That was my question, and you're telling me no. Okay. The next piece, I wanted to go back to, I think it was I can't remember who asked it, about you had some placeholder money and you said something, the last statement that really rung my ear was, we'll eventually get to that. So what I'm trying to think is that money, sometimes when you encumber money, if it's state money, for a certain amount of time, it'll go away. So is that money, is there any chance of losing that money if you don't use it?
No, I believe it's a rollover, and it's a grant that we've already accepted.
Okay.
So it should not go away.
So it's not an appropriation from the state that has a 3 to 5 year limit on it, and then if you don't use it, it reverts back.
I don't believe so.
Okay, so, and when you say we'll eventually get to it, what would prevent you from moving on that project? Is it other
Well,
funds?
we're moving on it, but we're at the mercy of CSX Railroad and all kinds of permitting and process that they're requiring. And so we're not designing it. We're kind of like the placeholder for the grant money. And it's being designed by Bergman. And so they're progressing the design, but it's taking a very long time.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. McLaughlin. Ms. Lakakis.
I have just two questions. Thank you. The first is at the foot of the rail trail on South Pearl, do we own that parking lot there too?
We own our parking lot. There's a parking lot that's being constructed and worked on adjacent to that. Yeah. But we own the parking lot that is existing, that is not under construction.
And I guess my question is about, it's always full. So is it ever going to be made any bigger? Or are we going to be allowed to use that adjacent one, or what is that adjacent one for? Is it
yes, we are. We're supposed to be allowed to use the adjacent one as well. It's for CDTA, I believe.
Okay.
Yep.
And then my other question is, I just don't remember, what is this 510 $75,000? It's in 510-4447 line. Says regional planning. I don't recall what is that for?
Let's see here. The regional planning is
it's on page 299.
Hold on, 299. Oh, Capital District Regional Planning, CDTC.
Okay.
That is for, hold on a second here. This 74. I am so sorry. I'm like having a blank out right now for the Capital District.
It's 7:45.
Pardon me?
It's 7:45.
This is Luke Rogers jumping in. So we're one of 4 member counties of CDRPC. So we pay a membership fee and they provide us services in return.
That's our chip in. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Simpson.
Yes, very quickly. From 2012 on, there was tremendous support for the creation of a bicycle path and pedestrian walkway on the Livingston Avenue Bridge. The support was from Senator Schumer on down, included Mayor Jennings, John McDonnell, and the holdup, of course, with CSX just didn't want to be bothered. Is there any consideration on connecting Albany to Troy on the bridge?
Seeing as though that is not a county bridge, so we don't have that as part of any of our plans. I would think that would be more of a City of Albany question.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Raimondo, for your presentation this evening. And I believe that you've answered all of our questions. If anyone has something, we'll send it to you and look for your response. So I bid you good evening and stay safe.
Thank you, you too.
Okay, thank you. Our next presenter is General Services. And our speaker is Mr. Latina. How are you?
Good evening, Madam Chair.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And you are our last speaker for the evening. So you have stood the test of time right now.
That's my pleasure.
Give him whatever he wants. Give him whatever he wants.
Okay, all right, go ahead. You may begin.
Yes, Madam Chair. We worked diligently with the county executive staff and management budget to come up with a budget for the county general services that will completely keep all of our services and our employees well and in well-functioning buildings and in safety.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Peter.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you for joining us, Commissioner Latina. How are you doing tonight?
Good, nice to see you.
Good to see you. So I'm going to follow up with some questions I did at last year's budget, and I'm hoping for some follow-up answers on that. The first is last year, I believe we're asked to approve, and then I believe we did approve it in via resolution. Basically, I think a little over $3 million in repairs to the parking garage. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct.
Okay. At the time, we had talked about that. The reason for the large price tag of that, a garage that size typically has annual repairs of $300,000 to $400,000 a year. This was 10 times as much, and it was basically that we did not have a preventative maintenance plan at that time. The question I have is, have there been developed a preventative maintenance plan that is annually checked up by an engineer who is familiar or an expert in structures like the parking garage? And is there a multi-year budget for that preventative maintenance?
Yes, as part of the project that's going on right now, the engineers will give us a maintenance program for that garage after they are completed with the garage. We do have funding that's going to be available through capital plan to keep up on the repairs that are going to be needed. Hopefully, with everything we're doing there, I think our repairs are going to be a lot less. The company that we were working with has been doing a great job for us. And I believe we are going to have a great maintenance plan for that garage.
What I would ask for Mr. Latina, and I'd obviously support this in your budget, is a structural engineer comes in every year to update that plan rather than rely on internal just because of the differences of that. I think it'd be a moderate cost and might save money long term. And I'm happy to discuss further offline, but I think could be valuable to do that and potentially some other specialized structures as well.
Yeah, that's something we could look into because usually in our capital plan, we do have a structural engineering evaluation bond that we could probably do that and get a contract, maybe a 3-year contract, put it out for an RFB for a 3-year contract to come and look at our garages.
Great. I'd be happy to work with that. And if it's okay, Madam Chairwoman, I just have one other question.
Continue.
Okay. Mr. Latino, we talked last year about potentially engaging in whether getting a drone or some ability to check when a building, even if temporary, in the county's custody before it gets transferred to the land bank or private sale, to check on roofs and other securing elements just because of how expensive teardowns can be, and it can happen very suddenly, especially with roof damage. Have there been any expansions or look into both the drone programming or securing the roof or observing the roof and other things of that nature from the top instead of just looking up?
Well, we have property crews that go out and look at the buildings hopefully on a weekly basis, depending how many properties we do have, to make sure that they're boarded up. They should be walking through them every once in a while, opening the doors to take a look in there, see if they're deteriorating. The problem is, a lot of the properties that we end up taking, they've been sitting out there for so long, 7, 8 years.
Yep.
Structurally, they're probably sound. You might have roof problems on them, but to put the money in for repair as a county to do all the time, I think would be cost prohibitive rather than letting the land bank take care of them, getting them into the land bank's hands as fast as we can and let them get these buildings sealed up.
My only comment on that would just be that I think, and I'm not suggesting the county does the repairs on the roof, but whether it's tarping or acknowledging the potential damage, 4 or 5 months with a leaky roof is enough to take down a structure. And at this point, emergency demos, whether taken out by the county or the land bank, is roughly 45 to 60,000, as well as detriment to the community, while potentially, patching that roof until it can be properly done is, a few thousand. I'm not talking about a proper roof repair. So I would just say we should potentially look at that. There's a Blight to Betterment Committee that myself and Carolyn McLaughlin co-chair. I'd love to talk to you about that, just to prevent the really detrimental costs of the teardowns.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Ms. Lukakis?
Hey, I was just wondering, we had talked about a preventive maintenance plan for all of the buildings and equipment last year, I thought, about when we were talking about the garages. Is that something that we do it separately for each thing, like elevators and tall buildings? And
well, that's really the cost that you see in my fees for services lines, are all those maintenance contracts that we have for the elevators, for our HVAC, for our boilers, pest control, electricians. That's all the fees for service. That's what that really is for maintenance contracts.
Okay. And then I would be remiss, I know we're not finished talking about it yet, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that I was sort of sad not to see the Board of Elections Plaza listed in the goals for 2021, but I know we have a meeting on Thursday, so
yes, correct.
We'll be talking about it more then.
I think we've made some progress down there over the last few weeks. We've taken out that front wall. We've done some nice plantings down there to make it, a little more improvement. Keep people from hanging out in front of that. It seems like they don't seem to be going to the wall anymore since we put up the new signs. So I think we're making progress down there.
Thank you. That's all I have, Wanda.
Thank you, Ms. Lukakis. Paul? Mr. Bergdorf?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I want to pick up where Matt and Lynn went off, because we very definitely had a conversation last year, and we actually passed some legislation to create a facilities review committee, and it was much broader than just garages and elevators, etc. It was to try to do an inventory of all county-owned buildings and try to create a scenario where we inspected them on a regular basis for life, health, safety, and code compliance. So we didn't get to the point where we were with the TU elevator. I always used to say, especially in a dark fiscal year, nobody likes to put any money into infrastructure. So I know that you have some money in your fee for service line, but they're generally for temporary architectural reviews and design. But we still haven't gotten to the point where I think we need to be, which is long-term stewardship for the capital plant for the county. So I would hope that maybe we get our committee back together. Sean is the chairperson, and we take it to the next step. I know Matt was interested in participating, and I just to hear Matt mention it and Lynn, I would be remiss if I didn't say that. Number two, have we had significant losses for parking, both related to, obviously, we don't have TU event parking, but with so many people working from home, have we lost a significant sum of money from monthly rentals of the county garage?
I don't believe so. A lot of the spots are state contracted spots. There's 335 spots that are state contracted spots over there. The county takes on I think it's, I want to say a couple of hundred spots in there. And then there's daily parkers that haven't given up their daily parking in there. So the TU has been pretty good, solid on their parking in there. Whereas some other lots around here, I know have lost some of their parking, and they've even dropped their prices to try and bring people back in. But we're pretty solid as far as our monthly parkers.
So you feel somewhat confident that you'll be coming close to budget on your parking revenues?
I do. Well, if you don't take into the account of what we get from SMG for event parking.
Well, that obviously that was the first thing I said.
Yeah.
If you don't have anything at the TU, you're not going to have a full lot that night. That's goes without saying. And I also noted that you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we have 2 speakers after you, and the evening is stretching. And
okay, one last question.
And please keep it short.
Yes,
please.
ma'am.
Thank you.
I see that refuge charges are down $250,000. Is that because of how do we get billed for refuse? Is it pay as
Well,
you throw?
I think what you're seeing there is, as far as that big decrease is, we just put out a 3-year. We do it in a 3-year contract, so that's not per year. That's over the life of the contract. So when we did it, we awarded to the lowest bidder for each one of the buildings. Instead of awarding to one contractor, we awarded to the lowest bidder. We break them out to the lowest bidder for each building. So that's where that comes in.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Miller.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Hi, Mr. Latina. A couple of quick ones, hopefully, for you. Just some line item questions. In 1164, the Unified Court Administration, your fees for services line is down over $330,000. It's almost in half. Can you just explain why that went down so far?
Well, our contracts don't really run from January 1 to January 1 when we put them out. So what you're seeing is, and under that, you're seeing an adjusted for encumbered POs that we carry over. Okay. That's what you're seeing. That's that figure there.
The big one. Okay, thank you. And then throughout several of different line items that you have in there, different codes, your equipment repair and rental and property repair and rentals are down significantly as well. Is that the same situation or?
Yes, that's the same.
Okay. And then specifically, the snow removal from a cut above landscaping that's in there, that's going from 2,100 to 50,000.
Well, that's per storm. You have the $50,000 is the cap of the contract. They charge us per, like if it's a 2-inch storm, they charge us so much. If it's a 6-inch storm, they charge us so much. So for the life of the contract year, let's say from, I don't know if it's going to go through November to November or how we did it, that 50,000 is in there. We usually don't use that whole 50,000. It's per storm price that we take that out of the contract.
And we had a pretty good year last year then.
Yeah, we did.
Because we're only needing $2,100 then, right?
Yeah, but we got hurt a couple of years good though too.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien.
The heat at the Ann Lee home.
Mr. O'Brien.
I asked this question last year, and you had mentioned that you were trying to find the shutoff.
I think that we gave the answer to the ledge a few months ago on our usage there for heating. There really is no heating cost there. So, and the electrical costs, we have to keep the electric on there because that feeds the Shaker Society buildings and the camera systems there. So there's very minimal cost as far as any kind of heating there. I think it's more meter charges that we're paying right now.
Could you provide that to the committee, please? The costs? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Ricard, this will be the last question of the night. Okay, and so if anybody has any other questions, we would like you again to exercise the email that was provided. And I'm also going to remind you, if you have questions, to submit them, please, so that when the presentation is given, it's possible that some of your answers, you'll hear them during the presentation of the agency head. Thank you. Mr. Ricard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. David, I appreciate you coming to speak to us this evening too.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I don't really have a question. It's more of a statement, and I just want to echo what my friend
Wait.
Lynn Lakakis said.
Mr. Ricard?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Okay, do you have a budget question?
Well, it's related to what my friend Lynn Lakakis said with regard to the Board of Elections.
Okay, I'm just gonna say this.
Yep.
The night is definitely long,
This will be a 10-second statement.
but please, thank you.
I got to get going myself, trust me. David, I just wanted to make you understand that myself and my 4 colleagues interviewed all the employees, and the major issue down there, it's a noise issue. So I want you to understand that you made cosmetic improvements outside. I appreciate that, I really do. But the bottom line is, these folks, we all interviewed, and they have to have the opportunity to work. It's very noisy there. There's knocking on the windows. They can hear ambient noise. Obviously, there was shootings down there. So we can do all the cosmetic issues we want, but the employees have to be able to work in an environment. And I'm all for saving money, trust me. But I was a little disappointed, like my friend Lynn said, that there wasn't additional revenue or additional monies in the budget for that.
Thank you, Mr. Ricard.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Latina. And I am.
Madam Chair, I just would like to make a statement about my staff over the COVID. My staff, my security staff, my cleaning staff, and all my staff through this COVID has performed phenomenally. We work tirelessly. We are all essential staff here. And I just want to get that out there, how much we appreciate the staff that's in general services and the guys from the county executive's office.
Thank you so much. I want to let everyone know that we had over 25 members that participated tonight. We're very happy about that. And Mr. Latina, we thank you for staying and answering our questions. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion, Madam Chairwoman.
So moved.
But thank you, Mr. Peter, and I have a second. Good night, everyone. See you tomorrow at 5:30. Please submit your questions early. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
Chairwoman.